Good afternoon, Darryl. How you doing?
I'm good, Dwayne. Good afternoon to you, and it's great to be with you.
Yeah, a long time since we last connected at the IBA annual meeting a few weeks back.
That's right. That's right.
Well, thanks again for joining us this afternoon to discuss the upcoming SOA election, which I believe the voting period is now open, and specifically your presidential candidacy. So, with that being said, why don't you tell me a little bit about your platform and your campaign?
Sure. Glad to. And maybe just a quick flyover introduction. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, and discovered the actual profession early on in college at the University of Nebraska, and spent my career on the East Coast since then. I started in industry about 5 years at Cigna. Spent several years then at Arthur Andersen with a great opportunity to build a practice, and then unfortunately had to dismantle it when that firm went under. But that's a story for another day, perhaps. And I've been now at Deloitte for over 20 years, where I've had a great opportunity to work with, a super team, work with some really great clients, and have some leadership opportunities, as well as doing a lot of volunteering around along the way, both with the SOA and the International Actuarial Association. Um, and so, in terms of my platform, or the message I've been sharing, Dwayne, I would say it starts with, first of all, immense pride and admiration for our profession, for the actual profession, what we do, how we create impact for society, for the world, really, who we are, our identity, the respect, the integrity, and also how we operate, and particularly how we team with others. So it starts from there. And then, I would say, if I put my risk hat, what am I worried on, or what am I worried about on, it's a couple things. One, I'd say on the supply side, I think we are starting, we're seeing a drop off in, interest in the career, or, people kind of choosing other options where they may not have before, as well as the diversity of our pipeline. Sure. Right. So I think there's some supply uh, concerns that we face. And then more on the demand side, I would say concerns in a couple of areas. One is, as the world changes, as we have AI and other technology enablers available to us, it creates a responsibility, really a pull for us to modernize what we do, evolve what we do, adapt. So I think there's a risk that we don't do that, we begin to lose ground. But also, there's a real opportunity for us to do more, and that's to me the exciting part of the future. As we are able to do some of the things we do now more efficiently, it gives us capacity to do more. And frankly, I just think there's a lot more we could do and should do to further the impact that we have. But we've got to make that happen, and that's where I think there's a real call to action for the profession. So that's where my message comes in. I have summarized it as, I really aspire for us to amplify our impact, our identity, and our intersections. And impact is kind of referring to that. How can we do more of what we do, have more impact, have a broader impact, and have it be more well known. I think that's this word amplify to me is a couple ways, both bigger but also louder and more well understood. The identity piece of it, I think, refers both to the skills and how do we make sure we've got the right skills to do all that, but also that identity in terms of the folks we're bringing in, and how are we attracting them? Are we sufficiently putting out the message of the opportunity and the impact that we can have to get people excited about being actuaries, but also back to the diversity and inclusiveness, right? How do we make this a community that is well known, that is diverse, that is welcoming of diverse members, and frankly is a place that a diverse set of people want to be part of, right? So there's a lot that goes in that identity, and amplifying that. And then intersections is really just a call out to the teaming we have to do, whether it's within the profession, with other actuarial associations, with organizations like the IABA, as well as all the other disciplines that we work with to make things happen, whether it be accounting, technologists, strategists. So anyway, so I'll pause there. There's a lot more we could unpack around that, but that's a brief summary of kind of the vision that I'm articulating as I seek the president-elect office, Dwayne.
Thanks for that overview of your platform. With that said, why don't you tell us about your career and some of the other volunteer opportunities and activities that you've experienced that have prepared you to lead the SOA as president if you are elected?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that. And as I mentioned, I've spent some time in industry, most of my career in consulting, um, and have been fortunate in, particularly in my consulting roles, to have quite a bit of leadership responsibility. I've led at Deloitte, I've led our US actuarial practice, I've led our global actuarial practice, and also had the opportunity to lead client teams that included, actuaries, but also other professionals with other disciplines. And so I've taken a lot out of that. And then in my volunteering with the SOA, as I like to summarize it, I've had roles that have taken me from the classroom to the boardroom. Served on the SOA board, but also done a lot of work around. My first volunteer experience was on an education or an exam committee. So I've had a lot of experience with kind of the core competencies, if you will, of the SOA: education and research. And then also with the International Actuarial Association, just a tremendous opportunity for about 10 years or a little more to work with that organization, really get a better understanding of what's happening around the world with other associations, and also lean in quite a bit in terms of helping to develop the profession in other parts of the world where it is developing, working with the Advice and Assistance Committee of the IAA, which has subcommittees focused on Asia, Africa, Latin America, and kind of Middle East, Eastern Europe. And I guess I'd summarize it, Dwayne, in terms of from all that, what I've taken, and I think what's really going to benefit me and help me to serve well as president-elect, or first of all, perspective on the profession. I've had the opportunity in both as we were building kind of initially a small consulting practice and now in a larger practice, to work with all different kinds of actuaries, retirement, healthcare, life, property casualty. I've been able to work with actuaries at all stages of careers, from interns and students to chief actuaries. So the perspective on that is really great. And geographically, the global exposure I've had, I think, really gives me an appreciation for not just the profession in North America or the US, but truly globally. I would also say, I mentioned connections to the core competencies of the SOA. I think that's a big plus. And probably the last thing I'd mention, other than just the leadership experience in general, is really being able to focus on the future of the profession. One of the things I had the privilege to do at Deloitte was lead an effort around really what does the future of actuarial work look like, and how do we express that? We came up with this term, the exponential actuary, meaning an actuary who really brings in different technologies, different ways of working to have more impact. And currently being involved with a lot of developments around AI, different use cases. Was able to lead a conversation recently among the Chief Actuaries Forum on that topic. So very excited about that. So all of that taken together, I think, gives me the right base of experience, capabilities, and kind of touch points and relationships to really be effective as president-elect.
Thank you. And why do you think that your platform is the best direction for the SOA?
Yeah, another great question, Dwayne. I'd say a couple things. First of all, it is a holistic platform, meaning focusing on what we do, the impact we have, but also who we are, our identity fundamentally, and who we partner with. And that's broad, but I think it needs to be broad. When we look at the change that we're experiencing and how we need to adapt and grow as a profession, I think we really do need to think broadly. Now, the SOA is not going to tackle every piece of that, and that's where that intersection piece is so important. But I think we do need to keep our eye on the big picture, and then figure out where are the right places for the SOA to really engage, and who do we partner with as we do that, right? So being holistic would be one aspect. And the other is, I think it addresses, to me, two key things that we've really got to focus on. One is impact oriented, really working kind of from the outside in terms of what do we want to achieve, both kind of in our day-to-day work with our employers and clients, but for society and for the public at large. So really focusing on that. Let's work outside in. What's the impact we want to have? And then let's work backwards into some of the tactics and so forth, whether it's education research that we need to get that. But then I think also that identity piece is so fundamental. And the term that I often come to when I think about that, Dwayne, is vibrant. I really want our identity to be vibrant, for this to be a vibrant community. And to me, that certainly means it's diverse, inclusive, and equitable, but it's more than that. I think energy, I think of it, I want it to be an identity that people are excited to join, that people, hey, I want to be part of that. And I've got to say, I put this in the post that I wrote after the IABA meeting, but I saw that in Philadelphia at the IABA meeting. And so it just reinforces my confidence that, yeah, I think we can achieve that. And to me, the IABA is a great example of the kind of community I think an identity we need to build more broadly for the profession. So anyway, I think it's the right platform because it's such an important moment for us. It's holistic, and I think it hits these really fundamental areas of impact and identity, which are so important to us right now.
Thank you. So how do you plan to engage SOA members across all stages of their career to ensure that the organization, the SOA, remains relevant and supportive of their professional development?
Yeah, that's a challenging one for sure, because we do have such a diverse membership in terms of skill levels, and not only that, but practice areas. Geographies we are far-reaching in many dimensions. And in terms of how I would engage, first of all, I certainly will continue to stay plugged into the channels of engagement I have now. I mentioned kind of classroom to boardroom. I sit on the Chief Actuaries Forum in the U.S., which gives me some great opportunity to talk to other chief actuaries, understand what they're thinking about. The other end of the spectrum, I'm involved with 2 universities in an advisory board capacity. I really spend as much time as I can with the students, with the interns at Deloitte, understand what's going on with them. And then, everywhere in between. So I'm certainly going to stay plugged in and even lean in more to the channels I have today. But aside from that, I really would want to connect with others that have those relationships and ways of gaining feedback and insights from different groups. I'd really like to explore as part of the SOA leadership team how we could create more of that too, in terms of it's hard to do town halls with such a large membership, but is there more we could do perhaps through local actuarial clubs? Is there more we could do through the IABA and other, affinity groups, other affiliate organizations, to bring feedback in that way? So I'm really, my style is collaborative. I love to connect with people. I love to ask questions, and I'm naturally curious. So it certainly would be one of my priorities to see how we can open up more dialogue. And back to that identity point, I think one of the challenges we have is for a lot of people, and I don't want to make the SOA kind of more than it should be, but I think for a lot of people, the SOA is a little bit distant maybe, or maybe they don't feel that connected. And I'd love to see how we could change that. And I think that'll not only help engage and get better communication going, but it'll help with that identity that I talked about before as well.
Thank you. So in your prior response, you mentioned IABA and being current president of the organization. The next few questions are very near and dear to me. The first is, as the next potential SOA president, how do you plan to collaborate with organizations like the IABA and others to advance diversity and inclusion within the actual profession?
Yeah, well, and as you know, Dwayne, as I said before, I have a ton of admiration and respect for the IABA in terms of your mission, but also in terms of the community and the space that you create. And I'm still on a bit of a high coming out of your annual meeting a couple of weeks ago, right? So collaborating with the IABA and others around diversity, equity, inclusion in the actual profession is really going to be a high priority for me, and I know it is for the overall SOA leadership team. So a couple of things I would say in terms of collaboration is one, I think really personally, being at Deloitte. Deloitte is part of the Corporate Advisory Council for the IBA, so certainly want to lean into that relationship and do as much as we can there. But I think from an SOA perspective, making sure we've got good communication between the two organizations. I think there's a lot more we could do to kind of spotlight and escalate what the IABA is doing to the broader SOA membership. For example, just the community, the vibrancy, the identity that you're created there, and how that really is, I think, a role model for the entire profession. So I'd love to find more ways to spotlight and connect what the IABA is doing to the broader SOA community. So that would be one for sure. And then I think I would want to, leverage my position as president-elect to just find other ways to connect the IABA into the organization. For instance, I think it would be fantastic to have the leadership team from the IABA speak to the SOA board about diversity in the profession, but also more broadly, just how you're achieving success as an organization, what we can learn, and some of the things we've talked about here. I've actually already proposed this idea to the Chief Actuaries Forum. I'd love to get that kind of exchange going there as well. So I'd certainly want to lean into, and I know the relationship is good today and there's a lot of communication today, and certainly want to continue that, but also find ways to expand that and just, more, spotlight and elevate what you're all doing so we can all benefit and learn from it.
Thank you. Related to that question, are there any other specific initiatives or policies you would champion to increase the representation of Black actuaries or other underrepresented groups within the SOA and broader actuarial community?
Yeah, it's really important, and I've touched on this identity and pipeline a couple of times. And so I think, focusing on the Black actuarial community and the pipeline of Black actuaries, I think is really important and something we need to stay focused on. So a couple of things I would say. One is I would really want to work through actuarial employers. If I think about my own employer, we're doing a couple of things that I think is really helping to move the needle in terms of having more Black actuaries join the profession, as well as empowering them to be more successful. One is changing the way we recruit, purposely going towards more, HBCUs with our recruiting efforts, working with the IABA. And by the way, I met a couple of great students, had the opportunity to interview them while I was in Philadelphia. So what you're doing is really working. So I think really finding ways to encourage and support employers and those that are hiring actuaries in doing those things, and just connecting kind of a community around that is really important. But then secondly, and I've seen this, is we've got to not only get folks in the door, and this goes to the equitable and inclusion side of things. How do we help make sure folks are being successful, getting off to a good start? And that's something I've really focused on a lot at Deloitte as I've been in a talent leader role, especially over this last year, is how do we make sure we've got the right mentorship, that folks are connected to others who can support them in their career journey, that they've got the safe space to, someone to go to where they have questions or challenges. So I think we've got to work on both sides of that. How do we get folks in the door? how do we support them through stages of their career. I think the leadership program that IABA is developing is going to be great. I think that could be a real partnership with a lot of these organizations. So I'd really like to just find more ways to connect employers. And I think the Chief Actuaries Forum is a place where you can do that quite naturally. I think everybody is trying and wants to do the right thing, but I think creating more community around that support. And I think the IABA should be unapologetic in terms of leaning into that and sort of pushing, if you will, and offering support in that. The other thing I'd say, though, is back to the pipeline. I think the broader community outreach is so important as well. So when I think about impact for actuaries, I think that's not just in our day job. That's not just, healthcare, insurance, the things that we do professionally, but in our communities as well. And so as I talk about amplify impact, I'd really like to see us as a profession amplify our impact personally and in our communities. And one of the ways I think we could really do that is by partnering more with, say, the Actuarial Foundation, other community-based organizations, as well as IABA. And I would love to see us mobilize more people through those kinds of efforts, reaching to Black communities around the U.S. and really just helping people, have awareness of the profession earlier on and support their interest in that. Because I think we've really got to work at this from all levels, from, even pre-college pipeline building to that recruiting to support through careers and mentorship. So I've rambled a bit there, but I think all of those are on my mind. And by the way, as it comes to partnering with the IABA, I will tell you one of the things I would be very focused on is just getting more people to experience the IABA, because coming away from this meeting, it is just so energizing. So I think if we can just succeed in getting more people into the IABA space, that's going to work wonders, and I think that'll be infectious in a good way in terms of getting more people excited and activated around this mission.
Thank you. I really appreciate your thoughts on some of those specific initiatives you highlighted, as well as the feedback on the IABA annual meeting. The next question I had is still related to diversity and really just identifying some of the more significant challenges you think facing diversity in the actual profession today, and how do you propose the SOA address these challenges?
Yeah, I would say, Dwayne, I've probably touched on the big ones already. I think, number one, I would say is the pipeline of people coming into the profession. If that pipeline is not diverse, then you don't have, you're not going to be able to have a diverse set of actuaries coming out the other end of that pipeline. So I think diversity of pipeline is one, and then the other would be support through the career. And I think, and to touch on that a little bit more, I think that support takes on different forms and importance as you move through the career. I think in the early days of career, it's more, hey, just making sure folks have got the resources they need, the network they need. And by the way, COVID, well, I think a lot of benefits came out of COVID in terms of the hybrid environment. I do think the hybrid environment creates new challenges in terms of that, making sure people are getting, sufficient connectivity to people as they start their career. So I think that kind of support at the beginning of the career is really important. But then as you're moving through, more mentorship / sponsorship, and how do we make sure that people have got the right kind of support and sponsorship as they look at making moves to the next level, moves into leadership, into senior ranks, into executive ranks. And, that's one of the things that I found coming out of the IABA meeting was a chance to enter into some of those kinds of conversations, relationships with people. So we've got to figure out how to connect that. And part of that is we've got to be developing not just the pipeline, but also the mentors and the sponsors. And those are not just Black actuaries. I mean, we've got to really recruit as many allies as possible. I certainly count myself as an ally, and I want to be a better ally and a more impactful ally. But we've got to make sure we're developing the mentors and sponsors along the way too. So I think it's all of that, and I've touched on a little bit. I think what the SOA can do. I do think I would like to see one of the things we've done at Deloitte to really help build awareness, not just awareness, but I would say getting people more invested in our DEI efforts is just sharing stories, highlighting stories as we've gone through different, if it's Black History Month, Women's History Month, taking topics and taking advantage to share stories, connect people. And I think because sometimes people want to help, want to engage, but maybe feel a little bit of self-consciousness about, I don't know where to start. I don't want to say the wrong thing. And so I think we've got to just work at breaking down those barriers and, inviting more people into what we're trying to accomplish here. And that's going to help us achieve better results.
Thank you. So if you are elected president, at the end of your presidency, how would you measure success?
Yeah, another great question. And sometimes people say, you ought to live life by thinking about what you want people to say at your funeral, right? So again, we're not talking about a funeral here, but if I think about, what I want to say at the end of my presidency, I would kind of come back to the platform first, Dwayne, which is, impact, identity, intersections, the what, the who, and the how we do. And I would say around impact, to me, a measure of success would be obviously having more impact. But honestly, I think a good, even more short-term milestone would be, are we on the same page in terms of the impact we're having? I have this idea of, call it an impact map, where we kind of put down some of the key areas of impact, where we're helping society, where we're helping organizations, businesses, and to have that mapped in a way that we can all kind of identify with it, be proud of it, be communicating it. I think it's also something we could then use with our partners, with other actuarial associations, other disciplines, and so forth. So I think just having a better articulation of what that impact is, and then through that being able to demonstrate that we're actually expanding that impact over time, that would be one measure of success. And back to identity, I would say fundamentally just measure, success would be that we are more vibrant. And ultimately, I think that means we are a place that more people want to be a part of. But as I said, I think that does mean that we're more diverse, we're more inclusive, but also there's more energy. And I think these things tie together, because part of that energy is going to come from feeling like I am connected to the impact that we're having. So I think if we can better articulate that impact, it gives us a basis to get more people excited and get more people joined into being part of that impact. So vibrancy would be another measure of success for me in terms of that identity. And then finally, in terms of the intersections, I would say a measure of success would be not just stronger or better intersections, but intersections that are more, I'd say, well-defined around how are we working together, what are we working together toward, kind of back to this impact map idea that, every intersection we have, and that would conclude, between the SOA and the IABA, would have a lot of clarity in terms of what we're trying to achieve, how we're doing it, the roles that we're playing, and so forth. So those would all be measures of success for me.
Wow, Darryl, thank you so much, man. This was super impactful for me to just sit in and listen in on. Dwayne had to jump. I tag teamed in, but seriously, thank you for your time, and thank you for just sharing what your vision for the SOA will be if elected president. I would also just like to remind everybody who's watching this, SOA elections are open now. I encourage you to go out, look at all of our candidates, all of the candidates' platforms, and vote, right? Like, this is an important moment in all of our lives for us to really just take a second, look at everybody's platform, and vote accordingly. Darryl, thank you again for your time. And obviously, if IABA can be of service to you as you grow throughout your career, please don't ever hesitate to pick up the phone and call. We appreciate you, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for the opportunity. And I will tell you, win or lose, I'm definitely going to be engaged with the IABA and looking forward to it. So thanks for everything you're doing. It's a great conversation.
We appreciate you and just the gems and everything that you dropped and the partnerships that you are ushering into. It really means a lot, and obviously we can tell that you care. So again, if there's something we can do for you, or if I can do anything, even though I'm the new guy on the call, would love to be a resource for you.
All right. Well, thank you much. Really appreciate it.